Hi there, this is Matt with State of Flex with yet another review for a Godzilla franchise film. We are on the third film of the Showa era. This is King Kong versus Godzilla. And this was one of my favorite ones growing up as a kid. I had the VHS and I was big into King Kong, big into Godzilla, so seeing them fight was mesmerizing. It always bothered me, and still to this day does, that Toho didn't land with a King Kong that looked a little more King Kong-like. I always felt that the King Kong suit in this film looked very, very cheap and underwhelming, and I think that has only aged for the worse, especially with how well Kong looked in the first Kong movie in his stop-motion days, or even how he looked about 10 years after this film in the regrettable American remakes that happened in 1976 or so. That said, one of the things that I always liked about this movie is it fares better as a King Kong movie than it does as a Godzilla movie. The Kong stuff kind of works, and I think largely this film is better than the 70s version of the American King Kong at recapturing what it was that made Kong kind of work and updating it a little bit. However, much like the 1933 version of the film, 30 years some odd onward and taken to a different continent for adaptation, all the racist elements are still there. The problematic nature of the Kong narrative does not fare any better in other hands outside of the U.S. It still holds very problematic and is truly kind of hard to watch. Yet it is that Kong stuff that is the best elements of this movie. I like when they're on their version of the Skull Island, where Kong is kind of worshipped, and you're following these couple Japanese people who are there to attain these berries that give off this special gummy berry juice, if you will, and that's what they kind of want. And there's this excellent scene where a giant octopus kind of attacks the village, and Kong comes in to save the day. Now, that was always one of my favorite scenes, and I do think it's a really cool scene. The octopus photography is really pretty solid until Kong's there to fight it. Then it looks super cheap and like weirdly like they just took cling wrap, blew it up, and then painted it brown on the inside, and then had Kong start beating it around. But Kong's arrival in this film is also incredibly underwhelming. Like, if you watch the original King Kong from 1933, when Kong arrives, when you see those gates, and Kong shows up and you see the first close-up of his face, it is a meaningful, powerful moment. It is etched into your brain. It is that good. It is one of those classic shots of cinema that has lingered throughout time. And when this is essentially the first remake of King Kong. So you'd think that they would have handled it somewhat similarly. When you first saw Godzilla in 1954, the reveal of the monster is a pretty gripping shot of Godzilla looming over the people of Edo Island, I believe. And it's a memorable first shot. King Kong's first shot in this is like you're seeing this octopus slowly collapse a little hut and the woman and child inside, and then all of a sudden they just cut over to the gate, and then a guy in a suit like walks over to it, Kong style, and just looks at it, smashes the gate in the cheapest looking thing, and then he goes and then he picks up this clear like saran wrap monster, and it's just so underwhelming, his introduction. That said, the scene after the fight where Kong is then on Skull Island and all the people are like worshiping him and stuff, and then he gets like put to sleep, that whole scene works really well. And anytime Kong is on screen thereafter, it is pretty good. This is, however, also a Godzilla movie, and a sequel to Godzilla Raids Again, at the end of which, you will remember, he got buried in ice. Well, this opens with a submarine that crashes into an iceberg. It's leaking all sorts of stuff, and a copter goes over, and oh my god, it's Godzilla! Inside the iceberg. And he breaks out and continues to wreak havoc. They redesigned the look of Godzilla. Now, they made his body look significantly better than it did in Godzilla Raids Again. I thought that suit looked a little more cheap. This suit, from neck down, looks a lot better, but they redesigned his head to make him look less ferocious and more, I don't want to say kid-friendly, because he doesn't look pleasant as he will in some of the later installments, but he doesn't look as menacing or as scary anymore, which is disappointing. However, Godzilla is back, and he continues to do his Godzilla thing of destroying things. Stripped away now entirely is the allegory of the nuclear warfare or anything like that. This is popcorn fanfare, and all leading to a fight between King Kong and Godzilla, these two titans. And so, as an audience member, when they first come together, you know they're going to throw down. Rewatching this film was hilarious because in my mind's eye, I remembered the first time that they threw down as being like something big and epic. And I watched this movie dozens of times when I was a kid. I didn't realize how like lame that first battle is. It's like the two of them look at each other. Godzilla just does a couple blasts with his laser breath, and then Kong is just like, wow, that guy's tough. And then he just kind of walks away, and it's the worst little fight. In fact, most of the battles in this aren't that good. I think it is a better fight than you got in Godzilla Raids Again, when the two monsters come together for the final fight. It does get a little slappy, but it kind of works. And I'm pretty sure they destroyed the same building that was destroyed in Godzilla Raids Again. But I digress. When it's a Godzilla vs. Kong movie, it doesn't really work, and I'm not really sure why I was so enamored with it when I was a kid, other than most of my favorite parts of the movie were early on, when it's being more of a remake of King Kong, and just in the Japanese style of kaiju monster. And that stuff worked for me. When Kong gets a hold of the girl and is climbing the building and whatnot, and then gets put to sleep, that stuff I think works quite well. When it's being a Kong movie, I like it. When it's being a King Kong vs. Godzilla movie, I guess it tickles me a little, but it's just so slappy and not like, it's so anticlimactic that I honestly don't know how these versus films continued on, because with the Godzilla vs. Anguirus and how they just got Anguirus out of the way so fast, and then Godzilla vs. Kong, where the movie's 90 minutes, they fight collectively maybe for like 15 minutes of the entire runtime, and when they're fighting it's not all that compelling. The stuff that's more compelling is all the stuff around them. This also has a human story. The human story is nowhere near as interesting or complex as the two previous films. Certainly not the first one, but not even as interesting or complex as the second movie. However, there's some comedic play in this that does kind of work for me, and some of the actors go a little over the top. It does feature the return of Dr. Serizawa's performer, the actor, but not as the Serizawa character, as you will see him pop up in multiple of these movies. Where do I land with this film? Is better than Godzilla Raids Again, by leaps and bounds. But it is kind of surprising that these movies continued on the trajectories that they did. They, at this point, have nothing to say. They do fare as more just typical action movies. This one has a little more of a dramatic lean on it, in that it's following the King Kong plot for a large portion of the first half of the movie. Yeah, it's kind of strange that this movie series pretty much moving forward is going to be billed as Godzilla versus this monster. Unusual, but the next couple ones we get are pretty substantial for the Godzilla lore, so I'm excited to talk about it. What do you guys think of Godzilla vs. Kong? I liked it a lot when I was a kid. As an adult, some parts tickle me, but it's not necessarily great. Better than the previous movie, but that's kind of about it. And also one of those rare cases where, spoiler alert, I think the remake, or American remake especially, of this story was better than this one. Let me know what you think about that bombshell, that take, in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, thanks for watching, peace.